Hi, I'm Magnus Krona from Weavy. So in this video, I'm going to show you our brand new, soon to be released React UI kit for Weavy. And I'm very excited to show you this because this is our first UI kit in addition to our existing drop-in JS. I'm going to show you how you can add this to your React application, how you can configure it, how you can specify your own styles, and also the individual components that we expose. So let's start by adding it. So as you can see, I'm using npm link here, and that's because it's not released yet, as I said. So I'm running it locally here for this demo. And what we get to is the actual UI kit that consists of the different components that you can use. We have the Weavy themes, which is the styling. And we have the Weavy client, which is responsible for connecting to the Weavy server, authentication, real time, and so on. So let's go to our app component here. And what we need to import is two things here. First, the Weavy provider, and then we're going to start with the Messenger app. And we import that from Weavy UI Kit React. And then we need to import the Weavy client, which was responsible for connecting to the server. Let's import that one. And we need to create a new instance of the client. Let's create a new Weavy client, and we should supply a configuration object here, which has an URI, which is the URL to the Weavy server, and the token factory. And the token factory is a function that should return a valid JWT, which is the way we authenticate the user to Weavy. We come back to that later. We need to use the Weavy provider component, which is the way we connect to the React app and gives all the subcomponents access to the Weavy context. We specify the client we just created, and then we're going to start with the Messenger app component. So let's add that one here. There we go. Now we need to specify the URL to the Weavy server. So in this case here, I'm running a local instance of the Weavy server. So I specify that one. I have it up and running on localhost, port 5001. And the token factory. So normally this should return a JWT from your host app, of course, generated on the server side for maximum security. But in this case, I'm just going to create a token here for this demo purpose. So I'm using the jwt.io site here, which is a nice site where you can create tokens. And the required claims in the payload that Weavy requires is a subject, the sub, which usually is the ID of the user in your host system, and the issuer, which is the name of the identity provider that you specify in the Weavy server configuration file. You need to set the expire date here. I'm just specifying a date so that the token doesn't expire. And last up, well, you can, of course, you can also specify the name, and you can actually specify a username if you want to have a specific username in Weavy, but that is optional. So, and then we need to sign the token with the secret that we also have specified in the Weavy server configuration file. So I'm taking this demo token here, which should be valid now. And I just paste it in. So the token factory will always return the same token in this case. So let's save that one. And next up, we should try to run it. So we type npm run start here and see what happens. Hopefully we have a messenger up and running. And we have a list of conversations and the conversation component, but it doesn't look very well. And if you remember, we also imported the themes from Weavy, so we need to specify that somewhere, and I'm going to specify it here in the index file. And you have to use the reboot CSS, and you have to add the default messenger. And hopefully now it looks a lot better. And it does. We have the list, and we have to the right, we have the conversation. And we can click the add conversation button and create a new conversation. So fully functional. We can try to send a message. So if you take a look at the icons, you can see they doesn't look that good. That's intentional. It's only a Unicode representation of the icon, because the UI kit is added or embedded into your React app, and you probably already have your branding and styles and icon library, maybe. So what you can do instead in the UI kit is that you can override all the UI components that we have. So, for example, buttons and modals, and also all the icons. So what I'm going to show you now is how you can specify your own set of icons that you want to use. So in order to do that, you need to import icon from our UI kit. And then you need to override that icon with your own set of icons. So let's create our own override icon component in the UI folder. We don't have that yet, but we're going to create it. And to specify or to tell the UI kit that you want to use your own icons, we set the icon.ui to our own icon UI file. So let's go ahead and create our own icon file. We call it icons.txt. And I'm just going to paste the code because it's quite a lot of code. But what I'm using here, I have imported the material design icons React package and imported some icons. And then I have the icon mapping here. So this is specified in the documentation, all the icons that you can override. And as you can see, I'm just specifying the material design icon I want to use instead of the default one. And then I render a component with the MDI icon component here. So if I save this, and we have an error here, so we need to correct that one. We save it, and hopefully it looks a lot better now. And there you go. Now we have material design icons instead of the default one. And you can do the same with other UI components, such as the modals, the buttons, and so on. So we specify it the same way. We have the buttons and we have the modals. So let's see what we have so far. Okay, next up, I would like to show the different individual components that we expose from the UI kit. We have a conversation list and we have a conversation. So instead of the messenger app, which is a complete ready-to-use messenger, we can use the individual components instead. So I can add the conversation list and the conversation. And if we go back to our test site, you can see that in the top now we have the conversation list, and underneath that we have the conversation. But nothing really happens when we click on it. That's because we have to surround the conversations with the messenger provider, which is responsible for all messenger specific stuff. So if we do that and save again, we can now see that it works as expected. We can click on a conversation and the conversation is selected. So that's the different components here. So what can we do with this? Well, we can create our own layout. So let's say we want to have a more sidebar look messenger. So let's create a new component. I'm going to call it my messenger layout, which is going to return the conversation list and conversation. And what I want to do here, I want to know if a conversation has been selected or not. And I have access to that if I use not the Weavy context, but the messenger context here. So I can import that one. That exposes the selected conversation ID property. So I can use that to set that if we haven't selected a conversation, then show the conversation list. And if we have selected a conversation, let's show the conversation. So they will show and hide the conversation and conversation list. Let's save it and try it out. And I need to add a component here, of course. Yeah, let's see what happens. And as you can see, the conversation list is displayed. And if we click on a conversation, the conversation is selected. We can also add a property here, which show back button, called show back button on the conversation. That will render a back button when a conversation is selected. So we can go back. So there we have it. Let's add some styles here to make it look a little bit better. So I'm just going to add some styles here. Copy and paste. Like that. Save it and go back. And now it looks a lot better. Now we have used the individual components instead of the ready-to-use messenger app. So we can style the messenger exactly the way we want. So the last thing I want to show is that you can easily override all the styling. Just go ahead and add the style you want to override. For example, if I want to have a different color on all the message bubble that I have written, you can just specify the classes and the styles. And you can do this with all the components and styles in the UI kit. So for example, all the message from all the other persons, I can style like that. So that's it for me. I hope you liked the video. Thank you.